Welcome to Raph's Retro Comics. This episode is part 2 of a big comic book haul I got on September 21st, or Batman Day. In my previous video, I also talked a little bit about budgeting for my purchases, and I talked about what I'm going to potentially do with these comic books. So I'm going to go into a little more detail about that later in the video. Alright, let's jump right in and take a look at the second half of the comic books that I got. Some okay Spider-Mans. Now, some of these are kind of like what I would call like mid-high grade. Nothing great, but still for what was essentially 85 cents each. It's not very common to find this kind of stuff in dollar bins. So it's number 207. Actually, a really nice copy of Amazing Spider-Man 215. An okay copy of Spider-Man 223. A nice copy of Spider-Man 224. And a copy of 268. An issue of Amazing Spider-Man 277 with a nice Charles Vess cover. I do like picking up kind of these better prestige format books, because the cover price on these are actually like $5.95 Canadian, and this is like, you know, more than 30 years ago as well too. 1991. For a cheap price, sure. And sometimes I'm not sure why I pick these up, but I usually like to pick up full sets if I see them, but this was actually missing issue number 4. But Damage Control number 1. I mean, it's got a Dr. Doom cover, I suppose. Number 2 and number 3, but no number 4. This was a really good find. Daredevil 197, which is also the first appearance of Lady Deathstrike. Yeah, 85 cents. Wow. I was able to find 2 copies of this, although this one isn't as nice. A copy of Daredevil 230, which is kind of in the middle of the Born Again run, but this actually has the title. And this is actually a Canadian newsstand. Yeah, whew, really good buy. First issue of ElQuest, which reprints Wendy and Richard Pini's wonderful run. Kind of a mid-grade copy of Ghost Rider number 77. Got a copy of Hulk number 277. And 292, I believe it's a Canadian newsstand. 2 nice Iron Mans, 154 and 155. These are nice. First issue of the new Iron Man, a copy of Magic number 1, a copy of Magic number 4, and some Marvel Classics comics. Now, some of these are kind of mid-grade, and you know, when I did that Marvel video on Scarce comic books, I actually thought about putting the Marvel Classic comics in there, but it's hard. Like the later issues of this run are pretty tough, but the early issues maybe not so hard. But you know, honestly, you can't give these away. Yeah, number 13, a copy of number 18, and some of these, honestly, like the way they condense these into the number of pages is, I think, borderline criminal. But you know, it is what it is. The Iliad number 26, a nice copy, or decent copy of Marvel Premiere number 56. Ooh, I was happy to find another run of one of the first comic books, or the first comic book that was ever given to me, and that's Marvel Superhero Contest of Champions. And I found a complete set, which is amazing, and they're all pretty decent. Marvel Tales with a nice Mike Zeck Punisher cover. I believe this reprints Spider-Man 135, which is his second full appearance, I want to say. Got a copy of Marvel 2-in-1 featuring Thing vs. Alpha Flight, which has some really not so good artwork. I do remember reading this a lot when I was a lot younger because I really liked Alpha Flight. Punisher number 1, this is Garth Ennis's run. This is a second print. Steve Dillon has pencils. This is a lot of fun if you get a chance to read it. Copy of RoboCop number 1. I could do like first issues. Copy of Smurfs #1. Yes. Copy of Star Trek #1. Mid-grade. I don't know why I picked these up, honestly. Team America, this is a really terrible comic book, but it is a first issue, and it actually, I have to admit, it does have a pretty cool cover. But yeah, Team America 1 is newsstand, 1 is direct, but pretty lousy comic book, but cool cover, I guess. Web of Spider-Man #2. Web of Spider-Man #6, Canadian newsstand. Wolverine #3, again, like for 85 cents. Oh man, hard to pass up. #7, an X-Men issue, 166. I believe this is also the first appearance of Lockheed. Yeah, good deal on that. I picked up two copies of this, X-Men Chronicles, which is kind of like an index book. Goes, well, maybe more than just an index book, but it's like a fanzine. Yeah, I do like weird stuff like this. One's kind of beat up, one's pretty nice. They actually had a lot of these, like maybe 50 copies, and like, you know, there was one time I owned a lot of these, but surprisingly, I don't have many left. But yeah, I picked up a couple just for fun. It's okay. Don't forget, they printed like, I don't know how many millions of these. I never want to pay more than cover price on this. X-Men #3 and an X-Men #30. So yeah, that was the rest of the Marvels that I picked up. So some pretty good stuff in there. So in the previous video, I did talk about how I budget for my comic books, and that I don't really have a fixed budget. But that being said, I do track all of my comic book purchases, and I put them in a Google spreadsheet, and that way I can kind of monitor how much I spend over the months and see if it's like, okay, that's enough for this month, or oh, I can maybe check out a sale because I didn't spend that much money the previous few months. Using Google Sheets or another kind of spreadsheet, or even a comic book app, is a really good way to kind of monitor your purchases, and I do highly recommend it, because what you don't want to do is overspend on this hobby. It's easy to get caught up in a lot of, you know, kind of the hype of what's going on, and or having an opportunity and maybe overspending on these comic books. I did find a lot of independent stuff that I really liked, and this pile is the independents that I picked up that day. So the second series of Aliens, like a couple copies of #1, #2, a couple copies of #2, #4. So unfortunately, no complete set. Aliens Earth War, #4, #3, and #1. Again, missing #2, which is too bad. A complete set of Aliens versus Predator, and actually, you know what? This was a fun series. I do remember. It's too bad the movie's kind of disappointed, but the comic book series is a lot of fun. Very good. Beautiful painted cover for #4. First issue of Astro City, a series I cannot recommend highly enough. What a wonderful series. Kurt Busiek's Astro City. I do like picking up kind of these independents from yesteryears. Now, sometimes, you know, this one's water damaged, but, you know, it's the first issue of Aztec Ace, written by Doug Mensch. Big fan of his writing. Very good. First issue of Evangeline. A Dark Horse Presents, featuring Predator. And I was really happy to find this. This is like a throwback from a long time ago. First issue of Elementals, which was a hot comic book way back in the day, and a series that I really enjoyed. I don't know what I did with my previous issues. Well, I think I had a one, and at the time when it was really hot, a long time ago, I think I sold it, but happy to find that, again, well, for 85 cents. First FemForce special issue, and to my surprise, I can't believe the series is still going on. I felt like the cover is a little David Stevens-esque, but it's a really fun black and white series.
issue of Justice Machine featuring the Elementals. Second issue of Planetary, a series I really enjoyed. Blackthorn Publishing first issue of Roach Mill. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I found this. Yeah. First issue of Timothy Truman's Scout. Great stuff. First issue of Vanguard Illustrated. Again, like these Pacific Comics, Eclipse Comics from back in the day. Interesting stuff. And Neil Adams, The Zero Patrol. It's still Neil Adams, and it is what it is.
So what's my plan for these comic books or my comic book collection in the future? In the past, when it's gotten to a certain point, I've decided to kind of thin out my collection. And many years ago, like 20 plus years ago, I used to actually sell on eBay. But that option, I think, has become a lot more difficult for Canadian sellers because the barrier to entry is just that much more difficult. And what do I mean by that? Well, one of the big things is the amount of taxes, shipping, and duty, and all the handling fees associated with selling comic books from Canada, because most of the buyers will be from the U.S. And when I did sell those many years ago, I would say like 90% of the buyers were from the U.S. And what I was charging to ship these comic books to the U.S. really wasn't that much more expensive than what U.S. sellers were charging to ship their books. So there was that kind of at least somewhat competitive balance there. Now it's like if I sell like a $5 comic book, like the amount that I have to charge for shipping can be like $7, $8, $9. And it doesn't make sense for, like collectors in the US to buy from me when I have to charge so much for shipping. Now, there's certainly other options through eBay, like if I were to sell larger lots. But one of the things with eBay is that you kind of have to establish yourself as a reliable seller in order for you to start making like pretty good sales. It's easier for established sellers to sell comic books, obviously, because they have like a higher feedback reputation, or if a lot of customers that they've had have been happy with their purchases, will return to that seller. And you can see that a lot with reputable comic book sellers on eBay. They'll generally get more for their comic books than, a seller who has like very little feedback or has sold very few comic books.
All right, this is the other batch of DC books that I got. A lot of good 80s stuff, like this first issue of Amethyst, which actually is a Canadian newsstand. First issue of Aquaman in his miniseries. A random Batman issue, number 336, pretty decent shape. Number 411, number 413, number 422. A complete set of Batman vs. Predator, the deluxe version. I do remember when this came out. Predator fought a lot of different characters. But yeah, that's a complete DC Dark Horse set 1, 2, and 3 of the deluxe version. I mean, check out the cover price on this. This is $5.95, and this came out in 1992. Jeez, 32 years ago. Man, I feel old. Batman books, these for $1 each, even though that they're more recent. I know they are good books at this price. I do have a set of this already. But yeah, the movie adaptation, the deluxe version. Michael Keaton. There you go. Really happy to find these, just because that, even in dollar bins, this kind of stuff can be kind of hard to find. And I do collect Blackhawk, and these ones have been on my radar, so they didn't have the set, but they had the first 5 issues, and I'm happy about that, because I'm one of those rare few Blackhawk collectors out there. A complete set of the Catwoman miniseries, and I do remember a time when this set was, well, not expensive, but It commanded a little bit of a premium, but nice to get a complete run of that. DC Comics presents, and this is actually it's the Superman Black Hawk issue, and it is a Canadian newsstand. Really random. Detective 500, really nice condition. Wow, yeah, that's nice. Detective 518. First issue of Dragonlance. I read these books in high school, and some people say, oh, it's a poor man's version of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. I don't know. I enjoyed them. Anyways, first issue. Happy to find that. Green Arrow #1. An issue of Hardware #1. An issue of Night Force #1. Marv Wolfman, Gene Colan. Back together. First issue of Mega Man #1. Kind of a beat-up copy, well, not a mid-grade copy of Prez #1. Really interesting 70s series that is worth reading just because it is weird. The Saga of Ra's al Ghul, missing the first issue, but 2, 3, and 4, which reprint the classic Denny O'Neil Neelam's run in Batman. I do have a #1 somewhere, so it was nice to finish that set. I always do like these quality reprints. Issue of Ronin #6. Frank Miller's really good series, but less than well-received series. But I do want to show you just a crazy fold-out explosion. Wow. Crazy. Amazing. I hope I didn't spoil this for anybody. Ronin #6. Copy of Supergirl #1. Canadian newsstand. Copy of Superman #4, first appearance of Bloodshot. A couple random Canadian Warlord issues. And a copy of the Young All-Stars #1. There you go. And so that's the rest of the DCs.
There are a lot of options when it comes to selling your books now. These days, you have plenty of options. As I mentioned before, you have eBay, and if you're based in the US, eBay certainly is a very good option. There's also Facebook Marketplace, there's Kijiji or Craigslist, there's Instagram, there's YouTube. The number of options these days sometimes seems kind of overwhelming. If you're looking at doing this as kind of a side hustle thing, you really need to be familiar with all these different options that you have. And I'm going to say, you really need to temper your expectations. What you really have to do is, you kind of have to go through the cycle of buying and selling in these different kind of areas to get a feel of what's most comfortable for you. I don't know which platform I would choose now if I were to sell some of my comic books. I think the idea of selling your comic books through different social media outlets seems pretty good because there are usually no fees involved. But again, it does require a lot of work, probably more work than you realize. It's not as simple as just posting a bunch of books on Instagram and hoping that somebody's going to make you an offer. There's also risks involved there because, you hear stories of people, not paying. So my advice there would be, you just really need to kind of temper your expectations, start slow, and find a particular platform that you're comfortable with and start from there. Certainly, like the social media platforms seem to be more low risk. And there are plenty of resources and videos out there that can certainly help you get off the ground there. But realize, it's probably going to be a lot more work than you think. I also used to do conventions with friends, and honestly, it was kind of fun doing these. But you have to realize it's a lot of work. You have to organize your books, you have to price your books, you have to present your books in a way that makes them more attractive, and then you have displays you gotta set up, you gotta make signage, and then you gotta figure out a way to kind of bring them to the convention floor. There's a lot of work involved. And just from what I've been reading or watching, it just seems like the regular comic book convention these days become less attended by comic book collectors as well as maybe they're not spending as much. Even with the last convention I did, when I looked at the amount of time and effort and the money that I made, was it really worth it? I don't know. But at the same time, I did the convention with my friends, so that's fun to do, and you get to talk to other collectors, but it is a pretty time-consuming process, especially when it comes to organizing and pricing your books. So these are the other older independents, or what I would call some of the more fun stuff that I picked up. I actually picked up a Casper and Wendy Harvey comic book, just to have one, I suppose. I did pick up some pretty decent classics illustrated. Again, like, honestly, you can't even give these away, but I don't mind picking these kind of books up when they're this cheap. And even a beat up copy of Frankenstein, which I read like right away. And I was actually really surprised at how close to the book this is. Far closer to the book than any other, like the Marvel series or other Frankenstein comic books that you'll read. From the Earth to the Moon, a Jules Verne. Again, these are in okay condition. Caesar's Conquests. Fawcett, Dennis the Menace, number 99. I just kind of picked it up because I thought the cover was kind of nice. Even though there's got a smudged date stamp on it. Pretty decent. I think one of my viewers will be happy to... Here's a Sad Sack Giant. Another Harvey book that I picked up. It's in okay shape. But fun. Really low-grade copy of Lois Lane number 19. But still, like... Last time I found some other kind of 50s DCs, a couple of random ones. This time this was, I don't know if it was there last time, but you know what? Yeah, it's a low grade copy with a lot of issues, but you know what? Honestly, for 85 cents, sure. I was really happy to find this. This is a later issue of Ghosts of Dr. Graves. Check out this crazy cover by Steve Ditko. Now, no new Steve Ditko story in this, but a reprint of one of his earlier stories. But what a great cover. What a fantastic cover. These are the various Star Wars issues that were there that, again, like a long time ago, maybe you would see these in the chibi bins, but to find something like this in the chibi bins just made my jaw drop. So, yeah, this is number 93. It's a Canadian newsstand. And here we go. Number 47. Number 54. Like, these are pretty nice, with the exception that they do have some kind of foxing on the back cover. So outside of that, they present very well. They would otherwise be, like 8.0 or even better. But again, for 85 cents for these really nice copies of Star Wars, 55, 59. And some of these were clean, like this issue number 62 is completely clean. This is like a really nice copy. Nice Darth Vader copy, number 63. A lot of these are newsstands. Number 64. 65. And these are like Canadian newsstands, actually. Number 72. Number 74, this one does have more extensive foxing. That's okay. 77. 78. Number 80, another nice Vader cover. 82. 84, really nice copy. 85. And some of these later issues are hard to find. And annual number 2. Super happy about picking these up for what they were. And there you go. The comic books were purchased at a local comic book store in Toronto in the East End called Treehouse Collectibles. Now, I've made a few purchases from there before, specifically on Free Comic Book Day earlier this year, as well as a few other times. So when it comes to buying books, if you watched any of my previous haul videos, you'll notice that I pretty much only buy my comic books at stores or at, brick and mortar stores. And there are like a number of reasons why I do this. I certainly like to support my local comic book stores, and I like to see the books when I buy them. And there's also something about just going through, bins and sale boxes and, finding really good stuff for really good prices. Like, I don't have a specific focus when it comes to buying specific books. I kind of like a lot of different things. It's a lot more fun and a lot easier to go to a local comic book store, like a used bookstore, and hunt that way. And do you know what my favorite section of the bins are? It's that miscellaneous letter. So like comic books that are miscellaneous M or miscellaneous A, going through those and finding like oddball stuff it's like, wow, that's really cool. That kind of stuff I like. That and like the new arrivals bin. So if you're a comic book store owner, definitely have a new arrivals bin section. I generally avoid buying online. And the reason why is because buying online makes me nervous. I'm an impulsive buyer at times, and it's so easy to buy stuff online. I've participated in a few whatnot auctions quite a while ago, and it is so easy to get caught up on these auctions. But after realizing, oh geez, I gotta buy more books to kind of save on shipping, you end up with books you don't necessarily want, and you kind of overpay for stuff because you kind of get caught up. So I avoid whatnot auctions now. But that being said, there are certainly a lot of great deals you can get on whatnot. But as a Canadian buyer, it's a little more difficult just because I really don't like paying a lot of money for shipping. And shipping is a big cost when you're buying these comic books online or through auction places like whatnot. If you enjoyed this haul video, I do have another haul video you can check out over here. And until next time, enjoy and read your comic books.